Well, the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has urged his nation to reject more austerity measures in the upcoming referendum over a proposal from the country's international lenders. Tsipras says he will accept a bailout, but only if some conditions are met. The Germans, however, say that negotiations are off as long as Greece goes ahead with that planned referendum.
Pensioners take to the streets urging fellow Greeks to say no to the proposed bailout deal. They gathered outside the country's finance ministry as those inside made frantic efforts to salvage a deal with international creditors. The door appeared to still be open for Greece and its lenders, but only just. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras says he'll accept a bailout if some conditions are changed. He also wants a €29 billion loan to cover its debt service payments over the next 2 years.
No means strong pressure for any economically viable agreement that provides a solution to our debt and will not make it skyrocket and will not continually undermine our efforts to help lift the Greek economy and Greek society. In any event, the Greek government remains at the negotiating table and will remain there until the end.
Germany was having none of it, refusing to negotiate while Greece is still set to hold Sunday's referendum on austerity. Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble.
We don't know if the Greek government is going to hold a referendum or not, whether it is for it or against it. You can't in all honesty expect us to talk with them in a situation like this. We need to wait to see what happens in Greece.
With queues forming at many cash machines and banks struggling to keep them filled, Tsipras is under growing pressure. But key sticking points remain, says FX Pro's Simon Smith.
Even after these months of negotiations, Greece still thinks that we have too much debt. We just need to write some of it down and then we'll be able to grow. On the other side, the ECB, the EU, the IMF still think, nope, we're not writing down any more debt. You still have to do the hard work.
Global financial markets have taken it all in their stride, strengthening Germany's hand.
I still believe that Greece will leave the euro at some point. It's just a question of when that reality will be faced. There's a decent chance that it may be faced now. And if you see the gaps that still remain between the two sides, even at this point in time when the bailout has expired and after many months of negotiations, fundamental differences still remain.
Eurozone finance ministers have been discussing the latest developments. Initial reaction suggests the new Greek proposal will be hard to accept.
Let's get some expert analysis on that now, and for that we can turn to Tony Gosling. He's a London-based investigative journalist. Tony, quite a complex situation there in Greece at the moment. Can you foresee a scenario where Tsipras and his government come out on top here?
Well, look, Sergen, welcome to the version of events that you will not be seeing anywhere here in the British media, because this is not just economic warfare, it's media warfare too. What's happening in Greece, and very few commentators in the West are really talking openly about this, is the same kind of structural adjustment program that the IMF have been levying in the 1970s and the 1980s against poor African countries, South American countries, is now being waged in Europe, in the EU, in the Eurozone. That is effectively loans being circled round again and again when the lender, that is the IMF and the European Central Bank in this case, know full well that the Greeks will not be able to pay them back, and so they'll have to sell off the family silver, have to sell off the infrastructure of the country, they have to sell off the utilities, things like railways, they're talking about ports, to sell the ports off, to sell off the electricity networks and all this kind of thing to pay back the debt. That actually means that it's the creditors, this is the Germans, the British and the banks who are actually taking all this infrastructure away from the Greeks. So thank goodness at last democracy has kind of woken the world up to the fact that the Greeks aren't going to take any more of this unserviceable debt. One of the fascinating aspects for me is the potential here for the Russians to get involved, and I think that there must be a big temptation for that, and also the contempt that the European Central Bank, the Eurogroup, seem to have for the idea of the Greeks voting the wrong way. And let me make it absolutely clear, I don't think there's going to be a big contagion going on with the Greek default or their lack of payment, because what's happening here is Greece is simply being punished for voting the wrong way. Here in Britain, we voted for a right-wing government. We've now got a thin majority Conservative government, so Britain will be okay. Don't get any ideas into your head that these markets are really free and open markets. They're controlled by the hedge funds, and their hedge funds nowadays decide where the countries survive or not, and they've made their decision. Greece is not going to survive in the Eurozone.
London-based investigative journalist Tony Gosling shedding some light for us there on the ongoing crisis in Greece. Tony, thanks very much.
Okay.